It's time for a vacation, and Fairway Travels is here to share great specials for you to choose from. Discover the charm and features of one of Sandal's 16 all-inclusive, luxury included, adults-only resorts, or a family-friendly beaches destination in the Caribbean. Or how about a couples resort in Jamaica? If cruising's your preference, get Thunderstroke aboard Carnival Cruise Lines or set sail on an award-winning Royal Caribbean ship. Join Virgin Voyages now for a wonderful adults-only sailing. It doesn't matter if you choose to travel by plane, train, automobile, cruise ship, or rowboat, we can help you reach your dream destination. Contact Fairway Travels today at 228-365-1012. That's 228-365-1012. Or email bookitnow247@gmail.com. Fairway Travels, where your journeys keep satisfying.
The station where our veterans' voices are heard, MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Welcome, Quack.
Program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome to the Motivated Mindset with your host, me, Jose Flores, and we are going to go into the why behind what we do in life. Have you ever wondered what truly drives people? I know I do. What fuels their purpose and motivation? In this podcast, we're going to explore those profound questions, uncovering the stories and insights that shape our journeys. Join me as we navigate in the depths of human ambition and uncover the secrets to living a fulfilled life, purpose, and driven. Let's get motivated. Thank you. What's up, people? How you doing? If you don't know, you better ask somebody. Hey, I'm your host, Jose Flores. Welcome to the Motivated Mindset. I'm excited that you're here. You know, MBR is the station that gives veterans a voice, like me, except when I have strep throat. We won't get into that. But anyway, hey, we got a really good show today. We got somebody straight out of the concrete jungle, born with that LES. No, not like the military, like leave earning statement, Lower East Side, right? And that hustle, he got that New York spice. And we got a Manhattan brother up in here. And before we got on the show, we had talked a couple of days, and we had a lot of sharing. But he's not your average suit and tie. Nah, this hermano, that means brother, for my people out there. He's been in the trenches, showing love to the youth, and that was before TikTok, TikTok. And there was one thing that I got from my brother here, that he's committed. He's passionate about what he does, and he's been schooling the streets on how to say no to drugs. And that's a big thing for those of us who have kids or nephews or nieces, right? And we have to always make sure that we're walking that line. But here's a man that does it every day. He doesn't talk it, he walks it. And from NADAP to the NYBOE, I'll tell you what those means later, to Mount St. Vincent, right? That's where he went. And my man went from a peer leader to a boss of blueprints and mental health recovery. And that's 2 decades in the struggle, and helping the chemically addicted, the mentally ill, and everybody in between. So, buckle up, mi gente. Get ready for a great show, and what I want is people to ask questions. When you put it in your comments, we'll take it from there. And let's bring my man on. Let me see, what's my thing here? All right.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
All right. Taye, what's up, my brother?
How are you, brother?
Hey, all this in a paycheck too. Actually, I don't get paid for the Hey, brother, one thing I was saying earlier, one thing, when we were talking about, even though you're from Manhattan, I'm from Brooklyn, Bronx, we have some of the same things that we did, Yes. But let's kick it off. Look, tell us, what it is for our audience never been to Lower East Side. How was it growing up? We'll go to the beginning.
Wow, he said the beginning.
Yeah, the
good.
beginning, well, not the real beginning. Like,
No, I get you.
Bedrock,
So, born in the 70s in the Lower East Side, predominantly Hispanic community. However, it's very much a mix. Hispanics, African Americans, Jews, and just a melting pot of everyone else. However, those three demographics are the majority of individuals who are down here. Also, we have Asians, of course. We have a new Southeast Asian population that is moved in, which is also wonderful. It adds to the flavor of the neighborhood. We're not too far from Little Italy, and it's just a melting pot. It's wonderful to be here.
Yep. Oh man,
Yes.
I think we talked about playing stickball. Oh, bro, Skelly's.
Yes.
Tell them what Skelly's is, bro.
Yes.
Skelly's going out of town.
Skelly's is one of those play park games. 13 boxes. Hit a killer, be a killer.
Yeah.
If you've never played Skelly's, you probably passed by it on the playground where you see the boxes drawn on the floor. It's a square shape. Center square 13. The object is to go from 1 to 13, 13 to 1. After that, you can eliminate other pieces by hitting your top into their top. It's played with tops primarily. We play with soda caps, milk caps, and backgammon or checker pieces. Sometimes we had to fill them with wax or clay. But that's just one of the many street games that we played. It was excellent.
Oh man. And playing stickball, I tell when growing up in the middle of the street with traffic and everything in some neighborhoods.
Yes. Sometimes the park wasn't the closest thing to you. You had to go to the street.
Yes, absolutely. And Zaid, remember the pumps? What we used to do with the pumps?
Oh man, the pumps were excellent. So whenever Jose turns around and says the pumps, we're talking about the fire hydrants.
Yeah.
Although the Lower East Side has plenty of pools here, sometimes we weren't accessing the pools necessarily for the day, and we might have just opened up a fire hydrant. Somebody may have taken some pliers to take off the caps to the fire hydrant, open it up full blast, take a Goya can or a Del Monte can, scrape it on the ground a few times just to get both ends of the lid off, and just use that as your hose. We'd use the tin cans as the hose. Kids were just having fun. It was better than the sprinklers because you got absolutely drenched whenever that water hit you full blast. The occasional fun was also squirting the fire hydrants at some of the convertibles or the cars that had their windows down at the time. So that was good fun. Good fun, and the whole block showed up for it.
They did. The whole blocks of old and young, everybody showed up.
Old and young. It was wonderful. If you were too little, you sat on the side and you just kind of laughed at it, and you just enjoyed the puddles that were on the side of the pump. However, if you were of age, then you definitely got in. And if you had some friends that weren't getting in, you kind of grabbed them and pulled them in with all of their clothes, and it was just a good experience. So we chased some folks around. It was good stuff.
Absolutely. Today's youth, a lot, it's the thumbs, a lot of indoor stuff,
Yes.
It is different. I said, there was a time where, once I remember my mom used to say, the street lights come on, you need to be in the house, and we used to come up, but we spend all our time just playing games, interacting, community, man,
Yes.
And that was up. And so, so my question is, how did living in the Lower East Side shape your outlook on the world, spiritually, mentally,
Spiritually, I was brought up in the church. My mom brought me to church when I was about 4 years old. I'm just dealing with, my recollection of things. And so, I went to a church down on Henry and Rucker called Trinity Assemblies of God, which was a wonderful experience for her to have brought me there. They had vacation Bible school and things of that nature. which made a great impact on my life and on my faith, as well as we got older, she sought other places that were more children-centered for us, because she had stopped attending down there. She brought us to another place called Eastside Pentecostal Church, which was on 11th Street between Avenue A or First Avenue, across from Junior High School 60, which was also a wonderful experience for myself. It really catered to a lot of kids, and it was actually a satellite. It was a satellite sister church to a larger church out in Ridgewood, which was actually predominantly Russian and German, ironically.
Wow.
So they really had a heart for the Lord, and they wanted to reach out and make an impact on the youth in this community. And so they set up that satellite church, and there was a van that would drive around and pick us up. So they would pick us up right on Houston Street, drive us over to 11th Street. After we were finished, they'd bring us right back. So that was a good experience. And also there were good mentors there. So, we learned a lot while we were there, just about our religion, our spirituality, our faith, and about the Lord, as well as our fellowship with one another. And it was really great, because the role models that were there, they were within arm's reach. These were individuals who, they're not just up on stage preaching. They're not just by the musician section ministering in song, but these are individuals who, after breaking bread with you in class, are really going to take time out just to pour into you and just find out about your day, find out what's going on with you, and if they could help out in any way, then they definitely did that.
Wow, that's deep, bro. That I remember when we moved from the Bronx to Brooklyn, the Fort Greene area. I remember the Salvation Army used to come around, and the way they would get us was like, hey, if you sit in the lucky chair, you get 50 cents, So we were all like, we would go on Sunday. They made a mistake giving us the 50 cents right in the beginning, and then we would leave. It's like, I got my 50 cents. So, I'm out of here,
Yeah.
And growing up Catholic, I remember, going there, but I really didn't understand a lot of because there's a lot of stuff they do in Catholic Church, but I'm glad that, one of the things that just happened to me recently was that I was saved, and that's been a huge thing for me. We got somebody that says, I watched somebody said, I watched the cross and the switchblade in church.
Oh, yes.
I don't know what that means, but
yes. No, that's a
the
classic movie, and they did show the cross and the switchblade down at Trinity Assemblies of God on Henry and Rucker. I remember that stuff. That's good.
Okay.
Good.
So that's a movie, right?
It's a Christian movie.
Is that what that is?
Switchblade. There were a lot of classics. So back in the I could only speak about the 70s and the 80s, because that's my youth. During the 70s and the 80s, we had a lot of movie nights that the church would use in order to do outreach to people. And with the movies, they would illustrate not only the gospel, but some of the challenges that were facing society, and try to use some of those conflicts to really draw people in. And bring them the good news that they don't have to suffer the way that they've been suffering, and that they can find comfort in the Lord. So it was a good experience.
Wow, that is stupendous. And we got somebody that says, good evening, my brother from CDL. And hello, Terry. Hello. We got people coming on. And if you have any questions, just put them in the chat rooms and so on. But no, that's so important. We're about to take a break, but when we come back, Taya, I want to talk about, because you started doing peer leadership and substance abuse in your teens.
Yes.
Well, most of us were just trying to figure out life. I remember, it was like, what, so what I want to do, and that's deep, brother, I want to talk about that when we come back off our short break. To talk about that. All right, team, let's take a quick break. All right.
Yes.
It's the guts and it's the glory. 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's a line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Hey. From the fields of Indiana to the swamps of Louisiana, to the golden coast of California, Uncle Sam's the only family he's got. His purple heartbeat won't stop, and his 18th birthday was the day he was born. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes.
The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Welcome, Quack.
Program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
The web at mbradio.com.
All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. What did you think of that video?
I think that it was wonderful. I think that that song reminds me of a song that we used to sing while we were down there at Trinity's Assemblies of God, which is "I'm in the Lord's Army," which was, you know, one of the old corritos that they used to sing back in the day. It was, and along with the Royal Rangers and stuff like that. So I'll say you funny. You know, along with the Royal Rangers. So I also think that
if I had hair every time time I hear that, I get goosebumps, and I'll be like, "What's up?"
That's funny. And I also think that those songs were like the song that just played remind me of those older songs, because those songs were like a call to action as well as a reminder of our responsibility, even in the community. To be proactive and to take a stance for what it is that you believe in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Before we went on break, we wanted to talk about, you know, that you started in your teens, but what sparked that kind of maturity and mission in you to do that?
So as I was saying before, we had a lot of good mentors in Sunday school, regardless to which church we were at, we had good Sunday school teachers, good role models. And when I was leaving public school, about to enter junior high school, there was a Sappist named Sandy. She was in PS 188. And then when I got to junior high school, 22, there was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Robinson, who eventually got replaced by Jackie Short, picked up the torch for him. And both Mr. Robinson, Miss Sandy, and Jackie Short were pivotal in making all of the children aware of the dangers of substance abuse, of alternatives to substance abuse, and just giving us an outlet in which to showcase our talents. So we did a lot of talent shows. As you saw in the bio, there were a lot of Say No to Drug talent shows that went on, and they were the first to do it. And I can't forget Miss Saunders, because she was actually the first talent show that I had participated in before Jackie Short came on. And then when Jackie came on, there were other talent shows that we did under youth leadership. So in New York City, there's a program called Youth Leadership, and it was under the director, Norman Whitlow. He reached out to all of the schools, all of the children, just to make sure that they were aware of what the dangers were. Mr. Robertson used to have this board that actually showed the substances themselves, so that individuals knew what to look out for. And they opened up the floor. They had a dialogue with us, and they got to hear from us, and we got to hear from them. And that open exchange really drove home the point and solidified the information in our minds about what it was. Now, some of us chose other things besides what it was that they were sharing. Right. However, it allowed us to make an informed choice, an informed decision about what it was that people were doing or getting into. And for others, it saved our lives. It kept us from some things that we should have never been a part of, and let us know where that true north was, how to get back home, how to get back to where we belong.
Right. Yeah, I recall when I joined the military, it was in the early 80s, and I remember how crack was killing our communities, man. It was just something, and I lost a lot of friends during that time when I lived in Brooklyn that I heard about. So, the stuff that you've been doing, thank you for that, man, for just, because I know you went from youth leadership to clinical counseling and planning. I think it was citywide health programs. That's some serious evolution, man. How did your education, Mount St. Vincent, is that correct?
Yes,
right?
Mount St. Vincent, yes.
Yes. To RAPT, how did that transition happen for you?
So with having worked with the individuals that I just mentioned, Mr. Robertson, Jackie Short, Sandy, and youth leadership under Norman Whitlow, we get older, we graduate, we move on in life. I had the opportunity to try to pick a couple of careers for myself, whether I studied to be an emergency medical technician. I decided that I was going to go away to school. I had gone to Job Corps, came back, and then I found myself still doing counseling because I went to work for Educational Alliance at Lillian Wald, which, the development where we're at. And while I was there, I was already counseling. I was doing the tutoring. I was doing the after school stuff with the kids. And one of the sisters there, who now I'm introduced to in conversation, her name was Cassandra Mack. Cassandra Mack was working in alignment with a program called NADAP. NADAP is a national alcohol and drug abuse program that serves to educate and to provide intervention and other resources for those in need. And they really took over from youth leadership, and we became peer leaders under them. So me and a couple of friends became peer leaders under them. We started doing some, peer counseling to those who were in our age bracket, as well as we had individuals like Luke Mann, who provided us with counseling education at that time, at that age. And then I got hired full time a few years later to actually be that substance abuse counselor with Educational Alliance. And that's where I met one of my best friends, who is Rodney Ramirez. I got to make sure to give him the shout out because Rodney Ramirez was very instrumentational in me getting what it is that I needed as far as the counseling, because he was in school for his KSAC, and that's the first time I had heard about KSAC training. And as soon as he went to school for it, he finished up and he became certified. And now I decided that I was going to go out and do that training. I went and did that training. And during the course of me doing that training, a job opportunity opened up. And so while I was in the Bronx studying for the KSAC, a job opportunity opened up at Kings County Hospital. And, you know, the rest is history from there. So I began the job, and, you know, the career was born.
Gotcha. Having some technical difficulties here, so you see me.
It's okay.
In and out. You know, one of the things that I learned, what does I'll make sure I'm pronouncing this right. Micah, is that correct?
Yeah, Micah. Yes.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't talk about that or even understand what that is. You know, what's the truth of working with people facing both mental illness and substance abuse?
Right. So MICA stands for mentally ill, chemically addicted, and there are individuals who they were suffering from mental illness before they got into chemical addiction. And started suffering from chemical addiction. And then there are those individuals who they started using substances first, and then mental illness kind of surfaced, you know. They wound up suffering mentally as a result of the substance use. And so in the MICA program, we address both, you know, and we not only deal with what's needed as far as intervention and education for individuals dealing with substance abuse issues, but we also focus in on making sure that people have the support for their mental health, because a lot of times, you know, substance abuse is under mental health, it's under the psychiatric disorders, and so a lot of times, you know, there's a stigma behind substance abuse, as well as there's a stigma behind mental health or mental disorders. And so we kind of allow them to, we kind of aid them in getting a grip on both, as well as provide some insight, as well as give them an opportunity to share their own insight in what best ways to address the issues and to get the help that they need.
Wow, before I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and a lot of us veterans who deal with, we self-medicate. Not only that's, now that you explained it like that, you know, you're dealing with a mental illness and you self-medicate with alcohol or other things, you know. And when I was in the military, all the senior NCOs, we all used to do it. We were working alcoholics, you know. We would all drink together and deal with it. And then when I got out of the military and I wasn't in my bubble anymore, that's when it really got bad, you know, until I asked for help. And I finally went and got help. And it's a challenge every day to deal with something like that. But, you know, I'm glad that you're there, Taye, doing stuff like that. And when you look back on that situation, what was for you the most eye-opening or powerful moments that remind you, this is exactly what I'm meant to do?
Well, I think one of the things that was eye-opening and influential in the practice is one day the psychiatrist walked into my office just to, you know, check on me, see how I was doing. He's like overseeing the program. And he walks into my office and he asked me, he said, "Hey, Mr. Brown, how's it going today?" and I had just come out of running a group with some of the patients. And he said, so how's it going? I said, everything's going fine, you know, but doc, I just don't get it. Why don't they just give it up? I don't get it.
Wow.
And watch this. And he looked at me and, you know, truth. I was sitting at my desk with a half gallon of milk and a big pack of Hydrox cookies, the duplex cookies. And my thing was eating cookies and milk, and that was my thing. And anybody who knows me for it. And as I was eating the cookies and milk, I was doing it while I was in conversation with them. So I'm writing notes, I'm talking to the psychiatrist, and I'm telling them, I don't understand why they just don't give it up. I popped the cookie in my mouth and went to take a sip. And remember, it's a half gallon of milk. The milk container is bigger than the straw, so I had two straws, right? And I'm sipping on the milk, and he looked at me and he said, Mr. Brown, weren't you an emergency medical technician? And I said, yes. And he said, well, don't you know that what you're doing right now is no good for you? And I said, yeah, I hear you.
Right.
And I popped another cookie. I took another sip of the milk, and I said, yeah, but I still don't know why they don't give it up. And he said, Mr. Brown. Yeah,
no, absolutely.
He said, Mr. Brown, you know, you can only take a person as far as you've gone, you know? And I said, yeah, I hear you, doc. And I popped another cookie and I drank some more milk, and he walked out of my office and left me alone. But here's the kicker, right?
That is hilarious.
No sooner did he do that. You know, he just left me with my own thoughts, right? No sooner did he do that, I got a phone call.
Right.
I got a phone call from a friend. Well, actually, I got a phone call from my mom. And what the phone call said was that my friend had died at the age of 38. And this friend of mine, the Dark Overlord, Lamar Sherrod, he's actually older than I am. He passed away at 38 from diabetes. And he died in his mother's crib, like his whole leg turned black. He passed away. He used to drink wine coolers and eat Suzy Q's. And I was doing much more when I was eating cookies and milk than he was doing with the Suzy Q's and the Calvin Coolers and stuff like that. And what I realized for myself was this would be my wake-up call to stop doing what I'm doing, right? To myself.
Right.
I decided that I was going to stop. But now here's what the doctor said that comes in, right, to that conversation. He said, you can only take people as far as you've gone. And when I made the decision to stop, suddenly everything that the patients had ever said to me about how difficult it was to stop doing what they were doing, what things were causing them to relapse, how influential it was for family members to offer them drinks, for them to offer them, you know, other things to get high with, was it all became surreal for myself, right? And so my thing was doing cookies and milk. And so who was going to stop me from doing cookies and milk? Who was going to frown on it, right? There was no stigma attached to that.
Right.
But I knew what I was doing to myself. And I knew that I didn't want my friend's death to be in vain. So I needed to stop. However, listen, it was to the degree that I would buy the display box of cookies. Jose, you remember those sandwich cookies that would be like 25 cents for a pack? They probably like 8 cookies in the pack.
Yeah.
Okay, so you remember the pack, right? But the pack used to come in a box. I would buy the display box. And I'm very serious. I would buy the display box.
Wow.
I would buy the gallon of milk, right? I'd go home, I'd knock it out watching Jerry Springer and watching Maury Povich. And then I do it again at like 2. I do that like at 11 o'clock, and then at like 2 o'clock at night, I would do it again, right? But I got to the point where I was disgusted with what I was doing. So I was they come 12 packs in a box. I got down to my last 3 packs, and I rolled them up in a bag, and I decided, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I gotta stop this.
Yeah.
And I went to throw it away. I threw it away, and probably 15 minutes later, I was digging in my trash can to turn around and get those cookies again because they were still in the bag. And I was like, "There's nothing wrong with these," and I started eating them again. And I'm being honest about this because Jose, individuals, whenever they start to think of addiction, what usually comes to mind are drugs. And, you know, whether they're legal or illegal, right? And what people don't recognize often is addiction is about use or behavior despite the consequences. And so I was using the cookies and milk at a level despite the consequences. And, you know, the signs and symptoms were all there. I got to the point where I realized if I threw the cookies in the garbage can that was in my apartment, I wasn't going to leave them there. So what I did was I took the bag and I threw it out the window.
Wow. Yeah.
6 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. That's deep, brother.
Listen, 6 o'clock in the morning, I jumped up, went downstairs and said, you know what? They haven't cleaned the grass yet. I could still get those cookies. They're inside the bag rolled up, right? And I hopped over the fence, went into the grass, got the cookies, came back upstairs, knocked them out, went off to work. And that's when I held the conversation with the doctor. Remember, I said, I don't know why they just don't give it up. And so it all played back for me. And I realized what the doctor was saying. And I said to myself,
wow,
how? I asked myself, I said, how are you going to do this? You want to do this. You recognize it's a problem, but how are you going to do it? And what came to mind was the information that I was sharing with the patients is information that I knew worked. I just was unaware that I needed it to work for me.
Yeah.
So I told myself that what I have to do is I have to now do what it is that I've told the patients to do. And I get to turn around and low key use their examples as strength for myself. And so everything that I would tell them in group to do, I was really talking to myself and going home and applying it for myself in order to get me out of the situation.
I can relate. It's hard to be a player coach sometimes, you know, apply those things to you. I can relate. What we're going to do, we got a question from somebody in the audience, but we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to answer some of that. I also want to talk about the stuff that you do outside of your work, and we'll delve into that when we come back.
Yeah.
But thank you for that.
Yes, yes.
Sacred flowers, sacred mother, earth is crying for her daughters. Sacred flowers, sacred mother, earth is crying for her daughters. Where have you gone? Who took them from us? Who stole them from us?
sacred flowers. Sacred flowers, sacred mother, earth is crying for her daughters. Sacred flowers, sacred mother, earth is crying for her daughters. Blooming life on the res, bringing light to our lives. You are missing your mist, sacred flowers.
All right. Yeah, that's another hard, I like that one video right there. There was a question to make sure I got it here. Comments. Somebody had asked a question about no, it ain't showing up. All right, but we'll get that. But I'll wait till my stuff comes up. One of the question was about so let me see. Oh, can you see? Does it show up on yours? Somebody, let me see if I can bring it up on here because I'm having some. But somebody said real life talk. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your service in the Lower East Side. You make a huge impact on our community. Somebody said that.
Well, God is good, and thank you for that. I saw one place in the comments that somebody asked what kind of cookies there were. So
okay, tell them.
No, check it out. Because today you have a lot of people who are fascinated by this conversation of edibles and so on and so forth, and so asking that kind of question as far as what kind of cookies they are. Not necessarily this particular person, but I just want to make the statement in general for anybody who may be watching. There was nothing special about these cookies. The thing that was at issue was my love for cookies. And so I love cookies so much. We have a place, we had a place here on the Lower East Side called the Blue Truck. Right, used to be right there on Houston and Baruch Place, and the white truck that was on Houston and Baruch Drive, and both of them used to sell penny cookies. And so, as a child in elementary school, you could go over and get 5 penny cookies, 10 penny cookies for a nickel a dime. So I worked my way up from the 5 to the 10 to the 20s to going over with $1 and some milk from the cafeteria and just knocking it out. So my fascination and my indulgence in cookies and milk started whenever I was a child, in my early childhood, and it just followed me up into adulthood. However, I hadn't realized the issue that it was until I began trying to help other people with their issues and wound up exposing my own issue. And found myself at a place where I needed to get honest about the fact that I had an issue with it, right? And one of the, as I was saying earlier, one of the key factors in that was that my boy died and that I had just held the conversation with the doctor. And so, my eye was now open and I was now utilizing the steps and the things that I was telling my patients about how to deal with their situation, I was actually using it on myself and applying it to my own life in order to get me out of that situation.
Absolutely. I mean, and sometimes when we look deep in ourselves, it's not easy to look at our own demons some of us carry, and try to tame that. I know I had some of those issues. And we had a question from Eva Fulton, and I don't know if you can see it.
I see it.
Ari said, I think it's difficult when the military and veteran culture perpetuates veteran service office location and given a drug for the symptoms in the military VA.
Okay. Right. So there are medications that are used to help take the edge off and to aid a person in recovering from the disease of addiction, with substance abuse. And there's a trick to it, which is, and I'm glad that the person brought it up, not everybody is on your side, even in the medical field. Not everybody is on your side. Sometimes individuals are taking advantage of people who are addicted to one substance only to string them out on another substance. And I'll give a couple of examples about that. We were at a training, and one of the pharmaceutical reps came in. This is when Suboxone was first coming online, and Suboxone is used to help treat opioid addiction. And when Suboxone was coming online, historically individuals had been treated with methadone. And so they were coming in saying, instead of people having to come to the hospital in order to receive methadone, what we're going to do is we're introducing Suboxone so that people can receive prescriptions for it, and then they can take it, at their own homes, whether they happen to be in a group home, halfway house, treatment facility, school, or wherever. They'll be able to do it at those places rather than have to come back and forth to the hospital to get their treatment. And while the person was giving this spiel and saying all of these great things about it, I had two questions. Actually started out with one, but it led to the second question. And here's the question. And mind you, I was sitting in a room of 30 other counselors at the time who were all vested in treating substance abuse. So here's the first question. The first question was, in comparison to methadone, how much is Suboxone? And the person said, well, let's say methadone is 50 cents. He said, Suboxone is $5. And immediately I said to myself, so there's a higher price tag associated with the new treatment, right? And it led me to my second question, because suspicion was up, but here's the icing on the cake. I asked him, I said, wait a minute. I do have another question. Excuse me, sir. And he said, yes, go ahead. And I said, how long is a person supposed to be on Suboxone before they come off? I think that's a fair question. Yes, Jose?
Yeah,
the person said, check it out. This, I hope somebody's listening. The person said, who said they're supposed to come off?
Wow.
Now, mind you, I'm sitting in a room of 30 other counselors, and I'm hoping that somebody else just heard what I heard, because we need to know that we're not introducing someone to something under the guise of helping them deal with one issue and then tagging them on another issue, So Suboxone has been used in order to turn around and treat opiate addiction. And, that's great that it's being used to treat opioid addiction. But here's the problem. When we forget that we were treating one thing and we leave a person on the second thing, right? So what good does it do if the point was to get them off? Let's get them off. You know, if you have to use a substance in order to get the person off, fine, no problem. Use the substance in order to get the person off the initial substance that they were addicted to. However, there should be a game plan in place in order to turn around and help get that person off the second substance, and the individual should not be dragged along the whole time. I know I'm gonna get some feedback from that later on. However, the truth is the truth. Let's work.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a question from Miss Paulette here. What suggestions would you offer to help loved ones be supportive and cope themselves as they try to support loved ones struggling with addiction?
Good. So addiction is also a brain disease, right? So addiction is not only what you see in the person's behavior, it's not only what you wind up knowledgeable about their bodies being exposed to, it's also a way of thinking. And so you'll hear from people, they'll say things like, oh, I've gone to detox doesn't work. I've gone to rehab doesn't work. And part of the reason why individuals are saying that is because they don't understand what the purpose of the detox was. They don't understand what the purpose of the rehab is, and they don't know what their part in recovery winds up being. And so just really quickly, I want to share with those who are listening that detox is for a medically supervised withdrawal. Anytime somebody's been using a substance, especially for a while, the body can get used to having that substance in it. And also the body can wind up suffering as the substance begins to leave the body. Some substances such as opioids and alcohol, a person can have a bad withdrawal from it, and they actually need medications in order to help them ease themselves down off of those things whenever they've been using it for a while. And so detox's purpose, sole purpose, is a medically supervised withdrawal. It does nothing for the mind. It is a medically supervised withdrawal that is just for your body to get rid of the substance. Now, rehab deals, and so that was the physiological. Rehab deals with the behavioral. Rehab is just to turn around and give you 28 days or more to get into a different behavior. A person's been ripping and running, right? They used to turn around and either binging or using to whatever frequencies, right? And rehab is to give them a safe space and some time and an opportunity to learn a different behavior. So most of the time, rehabs are 28 days because they realize that scientifically it just takes 28 days in order to learn a new behavior. So that's the behavioral aspect of things, right? So you've gone to detox, you've cleared yourself of the substance physiologically, right? You've gone to rehab, you've learned a new behavior, you're moving different now, right? Problem. Detox dealt with the physiological. Rehab dealt with the behavioral. However, you still have to deal with the psychological. And the only person, I don't care what they tell you, the only person who can turn around and deal with the psychological is yourself. And so this is why we have, we engage patients in psychotherapy. And this is why individuals have the opportunity to engage and participate in things like self-help groups, whether NA, AA, so on and so forth, so that you could listen to your own story, so that you can get honest with yourself, so that you can turn around and hear what's true about what you're saying and what's not true about what you're saying. And oftentimes your peers, those who are around you, will let you know whether or not that's a fact or it's not a fact, you know, whether you're keeping it honest or whether you're not keeping it honest. And just to continue with the person's question. So for the family, understanding why the person went to detox. It wasn't to cure them. Detox was just for the medically supervised withdrawal. Understanding why the person went to rehab. Rehab wasn't to cure them. Rehab was to give them time away from the substance and also an opportunity to pick up some new behaviors and to be supportive, because again, addiction is a brain disease. We don't get mad at a person for having asthma. We don't get mad at a person for having cancer. So don't get mad at a person because they're suffering from addiction. Be understanding that there are three components that the person is trying to deal with, and listen for a minute to where the person is coming from. Sometimes as the person is sharing with you, they may tell you something that you didn't know about their situation, and they may actually be able to tell you how best you can support them. You know, what support is it that you need?
Wow. No, thank you for that. And wow, we could this is just a program that you can go on for hours, because you know, because we're getting short on time. And to the grown folks who are listening and are filing that silent battle, you know, what message you got for them today in reference to what we just talked about?
So the message that I have for individuals today is, one, recovery is possible. Don't get mad at the person who's on their journey to recovery. Be supportive. Listen. Ask them for ways in which you can support them. If they happen to be a part of a program or be seeing someone who is aiding them in their treatment, find out how you can participate, you know, in the treatment. There's such thing as family counseling that can go on. The self-help groups, like NAAA, so on and so forth, they're also available for outsiders to come in and participate. And by coming in and taking a seat and listening to the stories that are being shared, you have the opportunity to receive some insight and to hear some things that you might not have known before about what the family member may be going through. Also, I want to say that as I was sharing a part of my own story, that some of the toughest people to deal with wound up being family, because at times a person can be trying to recover from an activity that the family is still engaged in. And so although I gave up cookies, it doesn't mean that my family gave up cookies. The very first person who turned around and tried to offer me a cookie was my ex-wife. While she was my wife, she came to me. Listen, I told her I gave up cookies. She went to the, listen, I told her I gave up cookies. She went to the store and bought Oreo cakes and hid them inside the pantry. And as soon as I opened up the pantry, the whole Oreo is just staring at me. And I'm like, yo, this is a setup. Like, what are we doing here? Right. I've had my daughters offer me cookies. Have friends who refer to me as my friend's mom referred to me as Cookie Monster. She used to buy me a cookie. She had a cookie jar just for me. And anytime I'd come by the house, she had milk and cookies waiting for me. And so just getting accustomed to saying no to the people that you love, and to let the people that you love know, listen, this is something that I had an issue with. And the best way that you could support me is to be aware of what I had an issue with and not even offer these things to me. You know, I don't care whether it's a toast at a wedding. I don't care whether, you know, it's any kind of good time or even a bad time. Sometimes it might be a funeral and somebody think, hey, you know, well, just take a shot, you'll feel better, or so on and so forth. Like, you have to understand, you may not have a problem or may not think you have a problem, but the person that you're offering it to, right, might suffer a whole lot more than you think they would suffer if they actually accepted it from you. So listen to them when they say no, because they're trying to save their life, and they're trying to save the life of those individuals who love them around them.
No, Ty, look, hey, we're gonna have to have you back on, but before I let you go, you know, are there any new programs? You got a book, you know, mentoring, anything coming out for you in the future? Before I let you go.
Well, a friend of mine asked me if I would start up a podcast such as yourself, and you know, I'm looking into that. However, more importantly, as far as programs, there are plenty of programs here in New York. I know that a lot of areas, they don't have the same resources that New York has. Oftentimes we get patients from out of state. So I would just advise individuals to go online. There are plenty of resources. Arms Acres has a beautiful program. They actually incorporate horses along with the program, because horses kind of help individuals to, you know, get into themselves and stuff like that. You also have places like ACI. These different places, they'll pick you up. They'll send a van to go and get you, you know? Also, let me just say to family members really quick, it begins and ends with the person who's going through it. So unless that person has made a decision for themselves, you know, little is going to change. You know, you can try and coerce a person into it. You can try and pressure a person into it, but you want the person to come to the understanding for themselves. And those individuals who may be listening, who may have been struggling and on the fence about whether or not to stop doing whatever it is they're doing. One, you know what life was like before you started doing what you were doing, and you are not far from being able to find yourself again. You are right there. You know, you are who you are. You are right there. You don't have to continue the use. You don't have to continue the suffering. Support is there for you. And substance abuse is only a sign and symptom of the real problem. So I say to everybody, get honest about what the real problem is, so that you can let go of these signs and symptoms.
Wow. Hey, Ty, thank you so much, brother. I'm gonna have you back on, because there's so much, and we had so many questions. I got a lot of thank yous and everything, and I think a lot of people need to hear this message, you know, especially from a professional like you. But God is good. You know, I want to say thank you, and for this weekend, Memorial Weekend, understand what Monday represents. It's for those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. So with that being said, thank you to my audience, everybody who showed up. If you need to get a hold of Ty H, just shoot me an email, let me know, and I'm sure that he can provide.
Can I give her a quick shout out?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I just want to shout out my baby Waleska, and I also want to shout out Ibelis and Chadi. And Luz, you know, just shout out to all of them. And Rodney.
It's all about family. Rodney, okay, gotcha. And thank you to everybody. Ty, bro, you are the MAN. That means man. And thank you, man. Much love to you. God is good. And we'll be connecting, bro. Especially when it comes to the podcast. I'm gonna connect you.
Blessings.
Everybody have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.